Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Steve Crone, and I'll be chairing this next section on selling North tech to the world. And we'll be on for 45 minutes. My background is strategy at Clarion, so part of my role is to understand market disruption, the change dynamic, if you like. And I guess what I see, disruption or organizations that are successful in disruption often spot a change in the competitive landscape or the business environment. And I like to keep my finger on the pulse of exactly what's going on in terms of change. And boy, have I been kept busy with COVID and Brexit and energy, climate change, digitization, etc. But let's just sort of take a step back in history and think about the North. The North has been the cradle of innovation for over, 200 years. And there are centres of excellence today across Yorkshire and Humberside, North East and the North West, where we're seeing organisations that are involved in world-class innovation that enables them to succeed not only in the UK but overseas. And so the next 45 minutes, we've brought together 5 organisations that are doing exactly that. So perhaps if I now go to our panel and ask them to introduce themselves. So we have a panel of 5, Dave Tucker from Glean, Tulip from BJSS, Ian McAleese from Snowflake, Claire from Paxman, and Richard Moran from Clarion. So perhaps if I start with you, Dave, and just in sort of 30 seconds or so, give us a bit of background on yourself and your business.
Sure, thanks, Steve. So I'm Dave Tucker, the founder and CEO of Glean, and we are a Leeds-based tech scale-up, which makes software to help students learn better from classes. And we believe that learning isn't just about ingesting information, but about digesting it. And we've created software to support a note-taking process for classes that aids effective learning. And over the last 10 years, we've been supporting students with disabilities with their class note-taking, but now our focus is more on helping all students learn better from class. And I guess final bit of context, we have 2 different business models, one for the UK, one for North America. And in North America, we sell directly to universities and colleges and have around 500 customers. And we're about 75 people in the Glean team, but grown for a while, grown organically without investment. But now is definitely a very exciting stage for us as an organization.
And certainly across the region, EdTech is seeing a bit of a boom with COVID. Interesting times, but moving swiftly on to Sarah from BJSS.
Hi, Steve. How you doing? You good?
Good, thanks. Yeah,
fantastic. I'll tell you a little bit more about us and our organisation. So, hi, I'm Sarah Tulip. My role is head of digital transformation at BJSS. So, working internationally with organisations to really think about their future strategy and how they're going to deliver that around digitisation and innovation. So as an organisation, we have grown extensively and extremely much so during the last 2 years during COVID, where so many of our clients have been thinking about how they reacted to that and digitised and transformed at pace. So we're now over 2,000 people. So that's very exciting, gives us lots of industry insight within technology, and we lead from sort of a point of excellence. We've got 19 offices now across the globe and growing. We're the largest privately owned independent technology consultancy, which means that we can, innovate and do, the things that we want to do. We're not beholden by many. We've got, a strong pedigree actually in software development, but really we work across things like cloud, AI, data automation. So we're able to end-to-end support an organization when it's thinking about disrupting, transforming, all those sort of things. Excited to be here and talk a little bit more about our journey across the globe.
And it all started here in the North.
Well, it did, yeah. We very much so. We have a head office in Leeds. So we started off in Leeds nearly 30 years ago. And we still, have that. It's our biggest office, but we have offices in Manchester, Sheffield, and we just opened a number of sub-offices as well. So we're still really focused on our northern footprint.
Thanks, Sarah. Moving on to Richard at Clarion.
Hi, thank you, Steve. My name's Richard Moran. I'm the senior partner at Clarion. We're a law firm based in Leeds. We're 15 years old in January. We've got approaching 300 people all under one roof in Leeds. And actually, just in terms of a sort of scale, rate of growth, we worked out we'd recruited 80 people since the first lockdown, some 18 months ago. We have, over the last 6 years, done double-digit growth as a business year on year. And I guess, I mean, we look after large corporates, private companies, entrepreneurs, and a lot of our work is specialised in technology and media and digital and healthcare. So I suppose we might be described as a disruptor in ourselves, but more interestingly, hopefully, is that we're an advisor to disruptors. That's what we're all about as a law firm, working out how we can help others achieve rates of change and change to markets and things like that.
Thanks, Richard. And Claire, a family-owned business, again based in the north, but now trading in the States.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everybody. My name's Claire Paxman. I'm one of the family members of the founders of Paxman. I'm also director of training and strategic initiatives. We manufacture a medical device which helps to prevent and minimise hair loss during chemotherapy. This was developed due to our late mum losing her hair during her breast cancer treatment, with our strong refrigeration knowledge and background. And that was, so we got medical device approval in 97. And now in 2021, we are distributing to over 60 countries worldwide. And also we have a strong team of around 62 people now, which is here in the UK and in different countries. But more importantly, we're proud to be changing the face of cancer and allowing people to retain their hair and encourage hair regrowth during their chemotherapy treatment.
Oh, thanks, Claire. It's great to hear of a northern business actually doing such a positive thing worldwide.
Thank you.
I guess our first four speakers can be characterised by being outbound organisations. So they're indigenous to the north, but they're taking what they do internationally. Next, we've got Ian from Snowflake, which is kind of the other way. I describe them as an inbound. So, yeah, massive organisation that's decided to choose the north as its home. So Ian, perhaps giving us a slightly different perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. As you know, I'm a Leeds lad, and having lived in Leeds all my life. And obviously, I run HR for Snowflake, and I've been there for about 3 years. And we have just gone through an incredible journey over the last few years. And certainly, when I joined the business back in 2019, having 700 people worldwide and only a few hundred people internationally, to now over 4,000 people worldwide and continuing to grow. And, you know, if I look at the numbers in lockdown, probably hired about 1,500 people just in lockdown across a number of locations. And, we're a data cloud data platform internationally, IPO'd during lockdown in 2020. And as you say, I think one of the things that I'm super excited about is making it snow in Leeds, which isn't very often.
Thanks, Ian. I sometimes think you must be a sucker for punishment, because you only seem to work with sort of very large scaling international organisations like PACE or ARIS as is now, and Splunk, all phenomenal success stories. And hopefully you can bring us some of that success to the north with Snowflake. So thank you for each giving a sort of brief introduction. That leaves us with just over half an hour to, I guess, get a bit of a debate going, and to provide a bit of structure. I did think of a few fairly straightforward questions just to sort of get it going. And what I was really interested in was, I guess we've got organisations that are at different sort of stages of their life cycle, and I just wanted to explore perhaps first with Dave to get an understanding of the stage you are in your life cycle, and when did you first start to look at the international agenda? I guess for many organisations, they just keep doing what they've always done and never look, beyond their immediate sort of location. And it's often quite a brave organisation I guess at the scale you are, to say, right, actually, we're going to take on the world. So I'm really keen to just understand how that sort of played out for you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've had a bit of a strange journey. We started off solving a very specific problem in a very niche market here in the UK. We were essentially helping to support students with disabilities in higher education, but selling into a government-funded scheme called the Disabled Students Allowance. And even in the very earliest days, we knew we needed to find something else for our product. We couldn't rely on this single stream of revenue. And so international was one of the items very early on. We were approached by a Swedish distributor to say, hey, I think we can bring this product to the Swedish disability market if you'd localize it. And that really did set us off in thinking broader than just the UK. That being said, it wasn't until 2015 when we really started understanding the US market, and that there was an opportunity there that was very, very different to the opportunity here in the UK. And we did have to build, I guess, additions to our core software product to turn that into a solution to really solve the issues that the universities were facing. But it was only in 2015 that we really thought, well, actually, this is probably the best opportunity we have that we're aware of. And to answer your first question, we're in this mix of being a scale-up, executing on that core business that we've been building over the years, including the North American college market. At the same time, we're a startup because last year we brought to market a brand new product called Glean. This July, we rebranded our company name as July. There's a huge commitment for this being the future of the company. And we do believe that our note-taking process and our software could add value to all students. And it's a very inclusive approach because it does solve the challenges of students with disabilities and others that struggle more than most for various reasons. So for us, it's actually the fact that we were a startup and we needed to find that product market fit in a bigger market to identify an opportunity that was worth chasing after. And it just so happened to be that the North American market was the one that we understood the best and thought we had the best chance of succeeding in.
That's great, Dave. Thanks for that. And perhaps if I move on to Sarah at BJSS, I guess, I mean, a large organisation that's been around a bit longer than Glean, and yeah, my sense is you've grown in a sustainable fashion. You've been very, sort of careful about the quality of the people that you recruit and also the clients that you want to work with. Yeah, I don't know. Can you track back to the point where you started thinking about the international side of the business?
Yeah, I think there's some really good points. There's some really good points you made about BJSS and quality, and that's always at the core of everything we do. So that does trigger any decisions that are made. Interestingly, I'm going to disclose I wasn't with the business when we made our first international move. So I sat down this week with our MD Stuart and we talked about it a little bit. And I think it was really interesting to explore. And we talked about why that happened. And actually, we are tech first and digital world is constantly evolving. It's continuous involvement and change and growth. And so, we had to keep thinking when we always review every year who we are, where we're going, what we're going to do. And when, opportunities came up, we actually thought we could just be huge in the UK. It would be really easy for us to be just the biggest organization doing this sort of work in the UK. And because of the quality and the way we work, the way we scale, that was very, very easy to do. And actually, when we thought about it, it was actually led by our people. And one of the things that sort of catalyzed us doing that was we had people who've worked for us who've said, I want to move to the States and I want to put my neck on the line and I really want to grow that business. And again, doing calculations, look at it from a commercial perspective, looking at it from risk, but actually empowering our employees to do that was one of the catalysts about us opening international offices. During lockdown, we opened a really successful office in Portugal, in Lisbon. And again, that was somebody who'd been based in Leeds who wanted to move over there. And we've scaled the office really, really quickly. And it's delivering to clients in the UK because of the new ways of working, sort of as, NHS digital. So for us, the catalyst, was actually driven by our employees and listening to what they want and sort of also thinking about from our perspective, we like to have lots of smaller offices or hubs of people, so we can keep things local and we can still live our values and be the organization that we want to be. So for us, although there are challenges, which I'm sure we'll come to, it's another way of us holding on to, the stuff that we really value at BJSS and being able to scale it. And, the other thing, I guess, finally, is that we have clients that initially were working, on a UK basis that we're now working with globally. So we might have done some work and, some of the big, retail organizations are actually global. So this was a chance for us to say, we can service you in other countries. And it was a nice way to move into markets as well. So reacting to our clients and their needs and them working with us and being happy, and how could we scale that as well?
That's really, really interesting, because I normally see it the other way around, that you're kind of taken overseas by your clients and then you've got to work out who's going to go over there to service it. But actually, you've done it the other way around. It's your people that have said, we want to be overseas. And then you've probably then linked the clients to it. So an interesting way of doing it, I guess.
And I think just to say that is because culture is so important to us. If we don't do it that way, it's really hard for us to scale BJSS to go somewhere, and we don't have a brand, but we also don't have people. We don't know how to be BJSS somewhere else.
Thanks, Sarah. And Richard, just to keep the running order the same, how's the law firm managed to achieve this?
So I guess we've done it in a very different way, actually. We recognized with the types of clients that we had and their growth rates and their issues that we needed to be able to support them wherever they needed to go, and sometimes to be help encourage and shape them in where they were going. And we started out with a big intellectual property practice, and that required, whether it was technology or brand, to be able to protect interests around the world. And we took a very different view. We decided to keep the culture. We would keep ourselves under one roof, and we would find what we term best friends, but basically other firms like us around the world. So we invested quite a lot of time in traveling, now largely done electronically rather than actually traveling. Sorry, that's my technology going wrong. And we in that process, it was quite exciting to find that there were other very independent and client-focused organisations around the world that we could join up with to deliver that service. So we deliver internationally to be able to deliver for the clients, but we're not trying to create a sort of formal office in international platform or anything like that.
That's great, Richard. And Claire, I mean, perhaps before you answer the question, give us a sense of how many members of the family are involved in the business, and how many generations are involved. Oh, you're on mute.
I'm on mute. Sorry. Yeah, most famous words, aren't they, of the last 18 months, folks? But yeah, there's two generations within the business. There's Glenn Paxman, who is our dad. He's the chairman and founder of the business. He doesn't take as much of an active role in the business as much anymore. But and then there's Richard Paxman, my brother, who is our CEO. So yeah, just the two of us now. But obviously we did go public in 2019. So which has its challenges, which we can talk about later if you like. So do you want me to sort of explain as well about our...
Yeah, I guess it's I mean, you've got those interesting sort of family dynamics, which can be different to a larger corporate, and it's how you've kind of agreed with the family that now's the time to kind of go overseas. I guess that would be the interesting dynamic. How did you get everybody to kind of sign up for that? Yeah, so I mean, we got, as I mentioned earlier, we got medical device approval in 1997, and the main focus at the beginning was here in the UK. But we did actually distribute and export to some European countries in those early days, around 2000. But we'd say that we definitely took a more focused approach in about 2010, and
this is my mum's legacy, putting a heart to what we do. But the most important thing as well is that, the sort of driver, if you like, for going overseas and why we wanted to expand is because we want to, over 80 million people are diagnosed with cancer every year. And there's millions of those will have to have chemotherapy and millions of those will lose their hair. So if you like, it was, having had that real life experience of somebody losing their hair, we wanted to make sure, and that is our, our value and our vision, is that no matter who you are, no matter where you are in the world, your ethnicity, your gender, your cancer type, that you get access to scalp cooling and you get the opportunity to retain your hair. So we did that initially by growing our international distributor base. But then for the last number of years, we've had a real heavy focus on entry into the USA, which again, where the opportunity cost at times has been a detriment to our rest of world market due to investment. But in 2021, this year, we've actually managed to raise some more additional financing. And that's part of our focus in further internationalization of the business. And we've got a real key focus as well as the USA, in Canada, India, Scandinavia, France and Germany, where we're not just having the distributor network, but actually employing Paxman people within that country, so that we get, you get the better footfall and more dynamic in that within those countries. So that's sort of, where we're at. There's still lots to go. As I say, we are distributing to 60 countries worldwide, but there's still lots to do within those markets as well, and getting that message out there about scalp cooling, because most people have never even heard of it.
And with what you do, I guess the regulatory kind of issues you had to face to get into the US, you can't just. I'm just thinking in my mind, contrasting that with Dave at Glean, where they're selling into the US sort of virtually. They don't have boots on the ground. Whereas I guess for you, Claire, you've had to think long and hard about the investment you're going to take to go into the US. You've got to get around the regulatory sort of red tape. So you've got to be serious about this and committed to it. Oh,
absolutely. There's many med device companies that actually don't do it just for that reason, because even though we had actually clinical trials to support the system and support the efficacy and the safety in Europe, that doesn't matter, and that's what that's one of the challenges of having a med device company as well, is entering into these markets which have regulatory requirements, but certainly with the US and the FDA. So yes, there was obviously a large investment was required, hence the reason why we actually chose to carry out an IPO, and we had to do a actual trial as well, which was with a number of sites, multiple sites, and over a 6-year period. But the fact that it's one of the world's largest healthcare markets is your goal at the end of it, and meaning that more people are getting access to the treatment. And we're proud now to have in excess of 400 systems out there in the US now, and we're in the top 5 cancer sites as well. Again, there's still lots to do out there. We've had to do a completely different model for the US, as it's different healthcare system, but challenging, but very, very rewarding at the same time.
Thanks for sharing that, Claire. So I guess we've heard from our 4 outbound organisations there, Joni. I guess let's get the flip side of that. In Snowflake, Snowflake. I think, Ian, you've told me they're probably the fastest, largest tech business on the planet. Explosive growth, a formidable journey it's been on. But I think it just started with a couple of guys. I don't know how long ago was that, and when did they start thinking about this being massive and thinking international?
Yeah, I think the business was effectively founded by 2 guys, French guys, in the US, who used to work for Oracle, who were incredibly frustrated with how cloud and data warehousing and that whole sort of data science worked, and effectively sort of reimagined what that could look like. And then with the help and support of an investor in the background, a whiteboard, a printer, and an apartment to sort of work out of, that's when Snowflake was born effectively. And with a couple of years of development, I think the first customer was signed in about 2014, and then from that was then just, I think, incredible growth. I was just looking at, we hired our first person in international back in 2017. So in 2017, early 17, we had 3 people based in London. And that was our sort of international footprint. And you fast forward to then, again, looking at the international count, so that's not worldwide headcount, we're probably about 1,200 people outside of the US since that 2017. And I think a lot of that has been in the last 18 months. And again, I'm looking at, new markets we're going into. We're in November, we go live in South Korea. We already have people in Dubai, but the entity goes live in November. Israel's just gone live. So the markets are growing sort of phenomenally. Equally, we're growing our engineering base in Berlin, in Warsaw. Our Indian team in Pune have gone from 0 a year ago to nearly 300 people today. And so when you're looking at where we're putting people, I think from my perspective, having Snowflake, it's always been one of my lifetime goals, particularly when you're working for companies like Snowflake or their equivalents, is how can I get them to Leeds? And also, know where Leeds is, to be honest, is a challenge. But for me, it's a personal coup to actually, as part of our growth strategy, is actually to have Leeds as one of our bases of where we can now start to build and grow our talent. And I think, looking at our participation in Leeds, it isn't coming into Leeds and being that sort of business that might start to sort of take talent away from other businesses. I think it's more about that cluster of talent within the region. And I think it's sort of participating in more of a broader sort of talent environment, and also that tech environment, that there's a cluster of tech businesses, and we all sort of operate as a bit of a magnet to bring other businesses equally to the region. And I think if people look and see Snowflake in Leeds, I think hopefully I'd like to think that they would go, well, if Snowflake's in Leeds, that I should give that some serious consideration.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. And actually, that you talk about clusters, and I remember reading a book by I think it was one of those Harvard business gurus, Michael Porter, was it? I think who wrote about clusters, and he talked about at the heart of most successful clusters, you have world-class academic institutes, and across the north, particularly with the N8 universities, we've got some amazing universities that are both generating innovation, but also the skills to feed the private sector, so that there's a pipeline of talent sort of coming through. And actually the concept of cluster theory is that when you do get a group of organizations, you think it's counterintuitive. You think, well, they could compete with each other. It's not a good idea. But actually the theory is they all do 10% better by being part of a cluster. And I guess across the north, we've got some really successful clusters, particularly around technology and even sort of satellite technology is a kind of an emerging theme that we're seeing, and things like hydrogen networks. So there's still, go back to where I started, the north being a cradle innovation. It hasn't stopped with the Industrial Revolution. It continues apace, but in new areas. I guess what I'd like to now move on to is we've talked about what the drivers were for going international. I guess some of the challenges that you've had, what have you learned? What have been the pitfalls? Perhaps who's helped you along the way to give you those little valuable nuggets of insight that's just sort of smoothed the path? And I'll stick with the same running order, Dave, if you want to go first. What have you learned along the way?
Well, I have to say, I mean, it's been a huge learning journey, and we continue to learn to this day. And setting up in a team in the UK to drive sales into the US was not our first attempt. So we actually started off partnering with a strategic distributor. I've been going to conferences since 2011. So we knew there was interest in the product. People looked at it and they're like, this is new, this is great, this is really interesting. But the thing is that doesn't necessarily turn into sales. And I think that was the first learning, that American culture is quite different to British culture. And one of the stereotypical things that we talk about, which is actually true, is Americans are quite enthusiastic. And you'll get this massive energy from people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it will turn into sales. And that is a lesson to learn. And so we partnered with this distributor, and the distance was really challenging, actually. And I think if you partner with anyone, it goes without saying, there has to be a huge amount of trust there. But when you combine that with the cultural differences, you are going to find things slightly harder than you might with a partner, say, based in the UK. So that didn't go well. And what we decided to do was work with a consultant who had built up a relationship with, and use them to help us truly understand the market, but most importantly, the people within the market, and build relationships with those people. We were selling into a small niche market, and that makes this a lot easier. And what ended up happening is that I became a part of that community. I built personal relationships with people, and people started to trust us as an organization, and we could trust those that we worked with through that community, through that relationship. So I think in terms of lessons learned or tips for people looking to do something similar, I would say things are going to be different in ways you can't predict. Definitely don't make assumptions. Be sure to question every aspect about your business model or your product, and validate that. Do your research. Definitely listen as much as you can, and also document that information so you can share it with the team and have good conversations where you're all aligned. I would say find people you trust, so that even if you do set up a US team, when things aren't going that well, you can deal with the situation from a place of knowledge. And then finally, be a part of a community if you can, and really embed yourself as much as possible. And you can do that before you have feet on the ground. You can do that before you really start driving up sales. I think creating some brand recognition and having those personal connections will really support all future endeavors as you try to invest more money. And I guess the final piece of advice is you don't have to go hard straight away. We were told that repeatedly before we attempted anything, and so we did dip our toe in first. And as a startup, we made sure we kept people close to us, and did hire the team in the UK just so we could learn as much as possible, and basically adapt to that knowledge rather than have a remote team in another country where there may be communication issues. So that's my final piece of advice: is you don't have to jump headfirst in necessarily.
And having broken into the US, I mean, is it just now? It's a huge market. You're just going to stick to kind of doing what you do in the UK and working on the US market for the foreseeable future, or do you take the view that that model of going to the US you could apply to other international territories?
I think both are true, and it's for us as a leadership team and as an organization to prioritize our strategy when it comes to growth and expansion. I think it's going to be inevitable that at some point, if we want to start getting significantly higher contracts with universities, we'll need feet on the ground there. That's a step for us to take at the right time. I think replicating what we've done in the US in other territories is attractive. The complicating thing about disability is that different cultures will have different views on society's responsibilities to support those with disabilities, and they'll have different support structures in place. So this is why we've got to be a bit careful. At the same time, our ambition is to help all learners. So really, I think the path for us is to really identify that route into mainstream education and then scale that out. One thing that's really attractive to me actually is emerging markets. And the reason for that is twofold. Number one, we're a purpose-driven business. We're motivated by having the most impact we can possible. And there's a huge amount of impact that you can have in emerging markets and the developing world, especially within education. And secondly, because it is developing, they don't necessarily have the same infrastructure or institutions. And I think that means opportunities for working with government, for kind of doing a different approach in a market that isn't quite so established, does create massive opportunities for organizations who are willing to take that risk. So I think that's something that in this time of disruption, don't just think locally, don't just think English speaking markets, because there's opportunities everywhere.
Thanks, Dave. That's really insightful. And then Sarah, I guess as an organization that's scaled, kind of you're further down the journey to Glean. What are the different sorts of challenges that you're now facing as a fairly substantial organization?
Yeah, so I think that actually, Dave, a lot of the stuff that Dave talks about scales, to be honest. So the sort of things he's talking about really do resonate with us as an organization. I think, from us, maybe we have moved, we've done it a few more times. So we've now got a head of international growth. So that means that we're quite grown up. And he will, go and do research around the markets, and he will really know in detail. And we'll be thinking maybe about the next 2 possible cities or countries that we're going to move into. Because for us, international is really good. It gives us resilience and it gives us growth. But I guess, the tough things are, I suppose when you've grown to a certain size as an organization and, you kind of know who you are and you have that confidence in it, and then you go to a new country and you've got no brand and nobody knows who you are. It's a really big challenge starting again and reinventing yourself every time. And for us, actually, the US was one of the hardest markets, and it took us a couple of goes at it. So we didn't win first time we went to America. We're going to take over America and that's going to be everything. It wasn't like that. We went through a couple of leaders. We went through a couple of different approaches. We tested different things. We didn't say, this is it, we can't break it. It was like, this isn't quite right for this market. And we had to learn how we can operate in that space. So I think that's definitely one of the things is seeing when something isn't working. For us, partnerships are really important. We have partnerships with Microsoft, AWS, Google, and they were a great way for us to create opportunities because they're always looking for somebody who can partner on a global scale. And actually, when we're known for quality, they love talking about us to their clients because they know that we're going to go in and do a great job. We talked about that template piece. Yeah, actually, we have a template, but it doesn't cover everything. We know how we're going to do some certain amount of marketing and fit into the community and do those things. But, it needs to be really flexible once you get there. And, just to give an example, we are a fast growing technology business, but actually our international currently is about 5% of our overall turnover. So for us, it's still quite early in that cycle and we still have a lot to do. From a BJSS perspective, I think one thing I would like to add, Stephen, it's not about BJSS, is just that often, technology, and it's for anybody listening really, technology startups, scale ups, quite often it's easy to sell locally and live within your own ecosystem. And I would encourage everybody, and I think Crisp is a fantastic example of being based in Leeds, but being a global business. And always having, those aspirations for global clients and going big. And, if you're a SaaS firm, whatever you're doing, don't be held back by your ecosystem, whether it be around investment, your network. I think we should always, especially businesses across the North, be thinking global and wanting to disrupt. And actually, as regions, we are really powerful and we are innovating and we are doing things that other people in the world aren't. So we should be shouting about those things and we should be international. We should be global, whether we're big businesses, small businesses. We should all have that appetite and energy.
I completely agree. And the drivers are often around accessing global talent or de-risking the business model. So just see whether those themes sort of come out of our final 3 panelists. So Richard, on to Clarion and what you're doing internationally, either yourself or where you might be supporting your clients.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Sarah, I wish you'd gone last with that summary. That was perfect. I think in terms of practical tips, there are a lot of people across the North who will have been and done the different things already. So it isn't just about, can I find somebody in a locality somewhere else in the world? but there will be a lot of people, often not competitors, who will be very happy to help, connect, give experiences, share experiences, and so that ecosystem that helps drive the North and drive that vision to go to the world. I think if people can use it and find connections and talk to people, they'll find a real willingness to share their experiences. Actually, many competitors are pretty good at collaborating as well. So I would just encourage people to find where those are. And Dave used the phrase people you trust, and I totally endorse that. My other practical experience is it's very different in very different jurisdictions. I mean, the law is different, but the cultural differences are so fundamental that just assuming a model will work in one place doesn't really say that it's going to work the same somewhere else. So those would be my practical observations on how to think big and how to go beyond your immediate marketplace.
Thanks, Richard, for making it very punchy and allowing us just about to keep on time. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so I'm just going to ask Claire and then Ian just to do literally two minutes each. Same question about the challenges and the pitfalls. If you go first, Claire.
Yeah, certainly. I'll be as quick as I can. So, yeah, I mean, the challenges, I think I've already alluded to it earlier anyway, with regards to being a med device company. The biggest challenges are all the regulatory requirements, for the different countries. Unfortunately, there's a lack of regulatory harmonization across the globe. So that can be difficult and quite challenging, but there are lots of supportive networks, organizations and consultancy bases that will help you with that. I'm also going to champion as well the academia and enterprise link, and with our local university, Huddersfield, have been fantastic. In the early days, we've been working with the University of Huddersfield now for 9 years, and initially it was with government KTP knowledge transfer partnership grants, and worked with the scientific department and with the design and development department, and that enabled us to enhance the credibility of scalp cooling, and also design a much better fitting cap to get better results. We've kind of come full circle, if you like, now as well, where we've invested back into the University of Huddersfield more recently, the last couple of years, and we've actually opened the world's first scalp cooling research and innovation centre, and that's here in Huddersfield. I'm in Huddersfield, not in Leeds, but that's incredible. There's nowhere like that in the world, and we've done that collaboratively here in the North and with our local university, and we're very proud of that. And we have heavily invested in R&D, and have also linked up with the University of Singapore, and are now developing another medical device for another debilitating side effect of chemotherapy, which is peripheral neuropathy. So lots of challenges, but so many highs, and great to be champion the North.
Thanks for keeping us time. And finally, Ian.
Yeah, I can keep it super brief because I think Sarah summed it up really well. But I think I've done international HR for a very long time, with a lot of growth businesses, and I think it's a methodology. There's a formula, and you get that right, and you can kind of repeat it. It's not just to say you're going to come across problems and challenges, because you do everywhere. But the biggest thing that I would say is, someone once said to me, "Great people find a way." And as long as you have great people, you will find a way through that, whatever that kind of difficulty, roadblock, whatever it might be. And get your playbook right, but then have great people, and it will work.
Oh, that was very succinct. Thank you, Ian. Well, we're just about at time, so I just really want to say thank you so much for our 5 panelists. I think you shared some really great insights, and I often think about, when I think about disruption and kind of and what's going on in the North, actually my passion is around innovation, internationalization, optimization. So particularly when times are going to be challenging, I think in this economy, are we doing as much as we can to optimize our internal processes? But as Claire touched on there, collaboration, I think, is so important, and part of the reason we're here today is to share these practical insights for any organizations that are thinking of going overseas for the first time. Yeah, I mean, there are great organizations like the LEP and knowledge transfer networks, and what was UKTI, now DIT. They offer a lot of support for organisations going internationally, but just peer-to-peer support, I think, is really important. So that collaboration point, I think, is really important. And I think we're bang on time in terms of finishing at 12:45. So hopefully we'll get a pat on the back for that. Thank you all.
Right. Thanks.